Welcome to week 6 of the 6 months to SOC challenge. First, I'm setting up my cable management because it's been a little bit of a disaster. Secondly, I'm going to set up Pi-hole on my Raspberry Pi for DNS-level monitoring on my home lab. Let's get into it. Here's the before we started doing the cable management fixes. There's cords all over the place, things everywhere. We don't know what's what, and there's overall lots of hazards. We gotta go ahead and fix this. I got these centralizers to stop wires and explosions, cable labels to identify what's what, and guides to keep everything compact and routed perfectly. We gotta tackle this cable management mess. I started by clearing everything off, getting rid of all the big stuff, all the odd wires, so we can begin from scratch and make everything look nice and neat. Much better. No more flying wires, everything is centralized, labeled, and guided into place. It's compact, clean, and finally under control. Let's go ahead and build our home lab. Before we get into the tutorial, let me go ahead and explain what Pi-hole is. Pi-hole is a DNS level blocker. When any device on your network has to look something up, it has to go to a DNS server first so that it can find the IP address of that site. Think about it like this. Let's say you want to shoot a call over to your friend Mike. You know that typically you just type in Mike and shoot him over a call. But in the background, your phone needs Mike's phone number so it knows his address and how to actually contact him. That's the same exact way devices contact websites. They need to first go to DNS to find their IP address so they actually know how to get to and contact the web server that any device is trying to reach. If a device on your network tries to access a domain that is on the block list that you've implemented and configured in Pi-hole, it won't actually allow that request to go through. It creates something called a DNS black hole, where it will actually reroute that destination to something that doesn't exist or won't work. So why is Pi-hole so important, and why should I include this in my home network? Well, one of the first and many things you get is ad blocking. You get to keep away some of those annoying ads that follow you around on your phone, laptop, TV, and any other devices. It won't allow those IP addresses to be reached. Second, you get tracker blocking. All of those annoying analytics and trackers that follow you around websites will be blocked. Now third, and this is a big one for security, visibility. You can see every single DNS request your devices make, from what time and what device, and all the logs will be right there in your Pi-hole dashboard. Let's say you have some malware inside of your network and it's connecting to a C2 server. You can see all of those DNS requests right inside of that dashboard. You can block known malicious domains. You can add many lists on there that have lists of known phishing campaigns and things of that nature. And if you care about having control over the things that are being seen on your network, you can configure specific websites to be blocked if you know that there are ones you don't want, for example, your kids to be on. I'm going to be doing mine on a Raspberry Pi 4. It's a little mini computer that costed me around $50. It's lightweight, so it can be running 24/7, so it's perfect for this kind of thing. It's super easy to set up, so let's go ahead and get into the tutorial so I can show you exactly how I set up Pi-hole in my home lab. Before we start this tutorial, if you're going to be following along with me in configuring Pi-hole for yourself, I'm going to let you know the materials you need to gather first before we start. First, you're going to need a Linux operating system on some sort of device. Like I've been saying before, I suggest you to use a Raspberry Pi. This is also why it's called Pi-hole. You typically run the Pi-hole on a Raspberry Pi, just because it's really lightweight and you can have it running 24/7. If you just got a brand new Raspberry Pi, you're in luck, because I'm going to be showing you how to flash the operating system onto a USB or typically micro SD card so that we can actually do things and use an operating system that we can install Pi-hole on. We're going to be installing the Raspbian OS that was created specifically for Raspberry Pis. And lastly, you need to be able to configure DHCP settings inside of your network. Typically that can sit inside of your router, or if you understand your network a little bit more and have a dedicated DHCP server, you're going to go over there so that you can set static IP addresses, specifically one for the Raspberry Pi. If you're unable to access your IP address, you can also configure a static IP right inside of your Raspberry Pi. Now let's go ahead and get into the tutorial. First, you're going to go on a computer and go to raspberrypi.com/software. Once you go there, you're going to go ahead and hit that download for Windows button or whatever operating system you're on, but I'm going to be demonstrating on Windows. And then after that's downloaded, you're going to boot it up and I'll see you there. Now, once you're in, you're going to be looking at a screen just like this. So first, you're going to select the Raspberry Pi you have. I have a Raspberry Pi 4. Then you'll click Next, and then you'll hit the operating system you want to put on there. If you have enough space, which most of the time you do, especially if you get like a 16 gigabyte micro SD card, you're going to go ahead and download the full version. I like the desktop version, but you could also go down here and also get the 64-bit. That is the best one, so you don't run into any complications. You can hit other and go to the light versions where there's no desktop environment, but you'll still have a command line and you could still put Pi-hole on there as well. It's a little bit more lightweight, but typically I just personally like to have a desktop and all the other fun stuff it comes with. Next, you're going to plug in that micro SD card or device that you have. You can plug it in from the start too, and then you'll be able to see it right here in the storage devices. And then just make sure the USB or micro SD card you're plugging in there, you're 100% okay with erasing all the data because everything's going to be wiped on there besides the operating system you're flashing on it. Then hit next, and then you're going to choose a host name. I like to name it Black Hole or something other than Raspberry Pi. A lot of the time people like to just name it Raspberry Pi, but me personally, I just know that in the off chance an attacker gets in, I don't want my host names to completely identify exactly what my device is. A lot of the times they might still be able to find it, but the host name will give them even more of a tip of exactly what it is. So just name it something, hopefully something not just Raspberry Pi. So my host name was Black Hole. And then you'll just go ahead and put some of your capital city, your time zone, and the keyboard layout you want. And then just a username and a password for the Raspberry Pi. You'll go ahead and put in your network's SSID and then the password for it, just so that when you boot it up, it'll automatically connect wirelessly, or you can plug in an Ethernet too. Then you'll go ahead and enable SSH so it can be easier for you to log in from your computer, so you can do it headless if you would like. I'm personally going to be booting it up a different way though. And then I like to enable Raspberry Pi Connect so that once I get it booted up, I don't have to constantly plug in a HDMI and unplug an HDMI or only use SSH and only have a command line. I like the Raspberry Pi Connect because it will actually give me exactly what my Raspberry Pi is showing and be it an exact like remote desktop sort of view. That's actually where I'm going to be demonstrating how we're going to install Pi-hole right in the Raspberry Pi Connect. And then you'll get the summary and then you'll go ahead and click write. And it's just going to let you know you're going to erase all the data and you'll just go, I understand, erase and write. Now, once the writing's done, you can go ahead and plug in that micro SD card or the USB right into the Raspberry Pi and load it up. And then you can log right into it because it should boot right up into the Raspbian OS. All right, now that we're in, first things first, you're going to need to upgrade and update your Raspberry Pi so that it can all be up to date so that things can work properly. You're going to run sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade -y so that it accepts all the requests and just automatically says yes. And then you'll run that right away so that things can work properly and it can be completely up to date. You're going to run the command ifconfig so that you can see the MAC address of the Raspberry Pi as well as the IP address of the Raspberry Pi so that you can go ahead and configure a static IP address in your DHCP server. Now that we ran that ifconfig command, we can see the IP address of the device as well as the MAC address. So now that we've done that, we can go into our DHCP or router settings and connect a static IP to it so it gets the same IP address every time so that we can then configure it to be a DNS server. Now we made it into our router settings. So first, we went ahead and identified that device, Black Hole. Here's the IP address and the MAC address we found running that ifconfig command. So we're going to go ahead right away and grab the MAC address of this device so that we can go ahead and set a static IP address so that Black Hole can always get the same IP address so that every time it gets an IP address, no other device can take it. It will get that same IP address and it can be easily found and located as the DNS server consistently. So let's go ahead and make that static IP address. Now I'm at the DHCP settings of my router. So once you go there, here I found the manually assigned IP around the DHCP list. So I know the pool of my IP addresses here is that MAC address we copied earlier. And then we're going to make an IP address that's actually inside of our DHCP pool or list. So we can just keep it as that 192.50.3, but it's always going to be that every time. And then we're not going to set a optional DNS server or host name for it. And we're just going to click add and apply. Now that that's done, I went ahead and clicked a couple more buttons and found our DNS settings. You can go to the WAN or LAN configuration of your router settings and you might find it over there, or there might be a dedicated DNS tab. Click around and you'll probably find it somewhere. So we had many other DNS servers we could configure this to, but we obviously want to set our own as that's going to be the Pi hole. And then we set it as that static IP address we assigned for the Raspberry Pi. So we just click that and then we'll hit save. And just keep in mind, we don't want any other DNS server there because sometimes devices will bypass the first one and use the second one. So if you want devices to consistently use Pi hole as the DNS server, make sure to only configure one. So we're going to go ahead and click save and run back to the Raspberry Pi and start to actually install Pi hole. Now that we've configured that static IP address and the DNS server settings, you can go ahead and restart your Raspberry Pi so it can get that static IP address and keep it. And then you can run ifconfig again, which we can do here real quickly, and double check that you have that IP address that it configured. If not, you can restart the steps, also use things like DHCP client to try renewing it and things of that nature. So next, we're going to go ahead and install Pi hole. So we're going to run this command curl-ssl, contacting that Pi hole website, and then we're going to pipe that into bash and then run that from there. All right, after it ran for a little bit, you're going to get a screen like this. This installer will transform your device into a network-wide ad blocker. Perfect, exactly what we're looking for. The Pi hole is free, powered by donations, okay. And the Pi hole is a server, so it needs a static IP address to function properly. We've already done that, so we can go ahead and click continue. We've already done all of this, so we can continue. And then what do you want your upstream provider to be? I typically just use Google because it's fast and easy, but you can look into other DNS servers that you would like to configure, because Pi hole is, yes, your DNS server, but it's just going to be checking your queries, but forwarding it to an actual DNS server and then going ahead and giving that whatever the actual DNS server with the records and things of that nature comes back with. It's then going to give that back to your device so that it can find that IP address of the website you're looking for. So we'll go ahead and hit OK. And then Pi hole relies on third-party lists in order to block ads. Yes. Would you like to enable query logging? Yes. And then we would like to see everything. We don't really need to hide domains and anonymous mode and things of that nature. We want to see exactly what the queries are and what our devices are requesting. It's going to keep loading here, and then we will be back when this is all done. All right, now it should come up with a screen that looks like this. Installation complete. Configure your devices to use Pi hole as their DNS server using the IPv4 static address we configured. And then this is going to be the web interface. This is really important to get both of these so that you can go ahead and, sorry, tripped on my words, so you can navigate from it from any device on your network. And that's also going to give you a default password that I suggest you change right away. So then we're going to hit OK. And then we're going to go ahead and try logging into our dashboard from a different computer and seeing what's going on and if it's working properly. We want to change that password right away because we never want a default password like that on any software or hardware or anything in your network. So like it says up here, it can be changed using Pi hole set password. So we're going to go Pi hole set password, and then we're just going to put in a password for now. Let's just say strong password 123. Obviously, I'm going to change this later, but this is just to show an example of how we're going to get this done. Oh, it needs root privileges, of course. Sorry about that. Sudo Pi hole set password. Sorry about that. Password 123. All right. So go ahead and set that password change, and then we're going to go try navigating to this on a different machine. We have now navigated to the page, and it's just asking for that password that we got earlier. So let's go ahead and put that in and log right in. All right, I signed into the dashboard, and now we can already see queries rolling through, probably from one of my devices, probably the device I'm using right now, actually. But we have an error on the domain list, and this happened to me earlier. We just got to go to the tools and update the gravity so it can update the block lists. Go ahead and do that. And now success. And now we see the 79,000 domains that it's currently blocking from that block list. So we can look at the query logs and see just a bunch of devices that are being contacted from this IP address right over here. And we can also see the time. And this is real security monitoring in real time. We can see some of the lists that we can configure, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how you can add more block lists, because this already is a pretty good block list that they have defaulted in here, but you can add even more for more specific things that you would like to block. This is firebog.net. This is where I get most of my lists that I put in my Pi-hole. These are the ones that are crossed off are lists that aren't being updated anymore. And the green ones are still being updated. So they're still putting more and new suspicious lists and like suspicious domains in these lists. And you can just go ahead and copy the link and add it to the block list. These are for advertisements. This is for tracking, malicious lists, things of that nature, other lists. And these lists are really good so that you don't put too many blocks, because if you get too many block lists on your Pi-hole, you may start causing trouble for people on your network. People might not be able to access specific things that are legitimate. Some websites won't work because of the ads are being blocked and things of that nature. So this is like a good list that can help with just some of the good, simple stuff. And also you get the updated ones as well. So let's go ahead and grab one of these and just add it inside of our block list. So we're going to go ahead and add a block list. We're going to go ahead and put that address there, and you could comment about it. We can just say advertising list, not how you spell advertising. There you go. Then add the block list. And now this is one of the many block lists. And then when these get updated every now and then, you could just come through here and update the gravity so that it can update those block lists that you have on there. Now we can go ahead and look at the dashboard, and you can just see total queries. You can see the active clients, percentage blocked, the top blocked domains, the top permitted domains, the most frequently visited, and things of that nature. And you can also see some of the clients, and overall, you pretty much get everything you need and everything we talked about before. So let's go ahead and demonstrate an example of trying to access a blocked domain. Now let's go ahead and go to a domain and block a domain like example.com. So add to denied domains, and then let's go ahead and try accessing it. All right, so now if we type in example.com, boom, error address invalid, and it won't let me reach example.com. Exactly what we want to see from the Pi-hole. That concludes my little mini tutorial on how to set up Pi-hole, and showing also the power in Pi-hole, about how powerful it can be to keep away from malicious domains and have some ad blocking in your network, as well as security monitoring. I hope you enjoyed that tutorial, and let's go ahead and wrap up this video. Thanks for watching that tutorial, and I hope I got you thinking about potentially buying a Raspberry Pi so you can put Pi-hole in your home lab as well. Keep in mind, I use a Raspberry Pi so that it can be low weight and run 24/7 without putting too much of a $sign on the electricity bill. But if you want, you could have this running on any PC that you don't really use very much, maybe like an older PC or a server you have laying around, and even on your main computer, though it's not very suggested. That was week 6 of the 6 months to SOC challenge. We sorted out my cable management, and we got DNS-level monitoring on my home lab and network. Next video, I'm going to be setting up Wuzza. This is a free open source theme that I'm going to be configuring in my home network. I'm super excited for it. Combined with Pi-hole, I'll have real soft infrastructure inside my home network. If you want the full breakdown of this video, go ahead and check out my personal blog at btoughsecurity.com, and don't forget to drop a like and subscribe so you can continue seeing more videos just like these. Let me know any other additions you think I should include in my home lab. Drop a comment down below so I can hear your suggestions. Don't forget to turn on post notifications so you can see my next video as soon as it drops. I will see you guys soon, and don't forget to be tough.